Hi, it's Dr. Simeon Roger back again for the Leadership and Culture Bite. Now, in today's video, what we're going to talk about is how you can kickstart innovation in your organization. Innovation. So, if you're finding yourself, if you're finding your organization is getting beaten to the market by competitors, if you're finding that they're coming up with innovative approaches that you haven't taken seriously, then there are things you can do about that. Okay. Now, the chances are, statistically, that if you are suffering from competitors who are out innovating you, chances are, statistically, that those competitors are younger organizations and hungrier organizations than yours. Why is that? It's because innovation historically has always been the province of the underdog. So, established organizations, in other words, organizations that have had market dominance for a long time, let's say, uh, they tend to fall into comfort and complacency, and therefore they stop innovating. Now, that's just human nature. Unfortunately, it seems to be the way that we're built. Okay. So, if that's you, there are still things you can do to reverse this. It's a kind of mental sclerosis. You have resources to innovate, yet you're not innovating. So, why is this? Let's have a look. So if we take historical examples, it's important to understand that entire nation states and their militaries, for example, fall into this category. They get complacent. Back in November 1940, beginning of World War II, the Royal Navy in the Mediterranean launched a very innovative attack against the Italian battle fleet based at Taranto. What did they do? They used torpedo planes. They flew a bunch of rickety old ferry swordfish biplane torpedo planes off HMS Illustrious and attacked the Italian fleet. And yeah, they did some significant damage, but really in the end, it was more like pinpricks. And this is because the Royal Navy was really not noted for innovation. It had become a very self satisfied bureaucracy, very much full of upper class twits, frankly, which any historian will admit. And they were not innovating. They were not interested in innovation. They were the top dog. They were the Navy to beat. Don't forget, the Royal Navy at that time controlled the oceans of the world. It was far larger than any of its competitors. Now, if the Royal Navy at Taranto had had the air wing of the Japanese carrier Akagi, they would not simply have delivered a few pinpricks to the Italian fleet, they would have completely demolished it. Completely. And the reason for that is simple. Japan was younger and hungrier. It had to beat the US Pacific Fleet. It was looking for asymmetric advantages, which we'll talk about in a minute. And so it took carrier aviation to its logical conclusion and used those lessons at Pearl Harbor and in the immediate aftermath. So innovation is it's absolutely critical. And yet the barriers to innovation in most organizations are formidable. Now, I've been in an established organization in my career at certain times. I remember, in fact, a manager came to me once and said, in this organization, no good idea goes unpunished. Okay, I guess I won't originate any great ideas. So, why do underdogs innovate so consistently and so consistently well down through history? Why has it been so easy for them? Well, it's pretty simple, really. In a new organization, a younger organization, there are fewer bureaucratic barriers to innovation. So think about it. In a lot of organizations, if you have an original idea, it has to go through endless layers of people before it gets to someone who's empowered to actually run with it and do something and champion that idea. So there are so many opportunities for that to be derailed because someone doesn't have enough time to look at it, because they don't care about innovation, because they object to the idea, because they're having a bad day. All of that. Okay, so huge problems. Also, there are fewer political games going on in younger organizations. And of course, in a younger organization, there's a much greater felt need to innovate and to get asymmetric advantage. Why asymmetric? Well, if you're a younger organization, you typically don't have the advantage of your major competitors. They'll have the advantage of market dominance, of capital behind them, of resources. You have to innovate in much more difficult circumstances. You have a tighter timeline, you have less of a budget behind you. So you're looking for areas where your competitor has not gone. You're looking for those asymmetric advantages. And you have to think out of the box really to counter the advantages of your adversary, of your competitor. So, what can you do right now to take your organization and get it back on track in terms of innovation? Well, the first thing is number one, go out and identify and begin to eliminate some of those barriers to innovation, some of those bureaucratic hurdles, some of those institutionalized things that stop good ideas from ever seeing the light of day. Number two is you have to establish some sort of incentive. So if I'm your employee and I come up with an idea that makes millions of dollars, do I know that I'm going to get anything more than maybe a pat on the back? There needs to be some sort of real incentive structure for this. And finally, you have to ensure that your staff are actually empowered to get creative, that they're really empowered to get creative and innovate, because in many organizations that isn't the case. I remember being at an industry conference about 20 years ago, and somebody stood up and said, problem in our industry is we do not hire the best and the brightest. Immediately, somebody else stood up and said, that's completely untrue. We hire the best and the brightest. We have incredible talent. Our problem is not that we don't have incredible talent. It's that when we bring them in, we shove them into a little box and we say, sit here, do this, and don't you dare have an original thought for the rest of your life. So these are just some indications of how you can take even an established organization and kickstart or re-kickstart this innovation cycle. But it means getting rid of some of the barriers that you've accidentally perhaps put in place over the years. That's it for now. I'm Dr. Simeon Roger for the Leadership and Culture Bite. Remember that our new self-leadership ebook is coming out very soon, and you'll be seeing more information on that. That's it for now. Have a wonderful day.